Welcome to the MemberWise Best Practice series. This video is brought to you today by the MemberWise Network, the leading free-to-join best practice network for membership and association professionals. We hope that you enjoy this great presentation, and for further information about our growing network, please visit www.memberwise.org.uk.
Thank you for that really generous introduction, Nero. Oh, he's gone. He's not staying around. So I'm here today to talk about one project that I look after, which is ChemNet. I'm going to give you a little bit about the background of why we set up ChemNet, but actually what I think is more important and more useful for this room today is the sort of journey that we've been on with it. That's my slide again. I'm going to start with contextualizing who we are and why this was set up. Now I've gone too far. No, we're fine. Okay, so I'm from the Royal Society of Chemistry. We're a professional body, as most of you in the room are. We have 51,000 members. We're also a publisher, and we're a knowledge business. And these three facets bring chemical scientists from all over the world together. As I'm pretty sure most of you in the room, in the information age, we've got a really ambitious international vision for our future. We already work in investing in education across the globe. We raise and we maintain standards. We collaborate with industry and academia. We work really closely with governments to inform policy, all with the aim of trying to create the best chemical science. We're also really proud to promote and support and celebrate diversity and inclusion within the chemical sciences. And all in all, this is with the aim of trying to shape the future of the chemical sciences. And that's very much where ChemNet comes in. But before I move on to that, I'm just going to get a little bit of a feel of who's in the room, and hopefully the caffeine has kicked in. So you can do this either by standing up or by raising your hands. I just wanted to have a feel for who in this room belongs to a membership organization that has graduates that are their members. So I think that's probably well over half, I would say. Who in the room has a membership category that has students as their members, undergraduate students? About the same, okay. And how many in the room have a membership category for those who are still in school? Just my table? Oh no, there's someone over here and one or two others. Okay, so if any of you have read the program, ChemNet is a membership community for 14 to 18-year-olds, and I guess a lot of you may have thought, why is this important to you? But hopefully it doesn't take too much of a leap of the imagination to realize the people that are on my community in a few years' time will be your student members, they may be your graduates. So I hope through the course of this session today you'll get something to take home. So, as I said, ChemNet is a membership community like any other. We focus on 14 to 18-year-olds, so in England and Wales, that's GCSE, it's an A-level. But we also do some things for Scotland and Ireland for the curriculums there. And it was set up to really try and improve the baseline understanding of chemistry, particularly in the UK, but globally too, in the general public. As the project has matured, it's become more closely aligned with our membership strategy and the educational strategy of the Royal Society of Chemistry. So hopefully some of these core themes that I'm about to bring up on the screens will be familiar to the sort of things that your organizations are trying to achieve. So firstly, that is increasing participation in the chemical sciences, particularly beyond compulsory education. So everyone at that GCSE age that I just mentioned, they have to study chemistry in some fashion, but beyond that, they don't, and we're trying to increase that participation. There we are. Next up is disseminating high-quality knowledge, and this can be in the form of scientific content, resources, courses, guides, events. And hopefully I'm just saying things that are familiar to what your organizations do. We're also committed to supporting the professional development of individuals who are studying the chemical sciences, and that includes those working in a school chemistry lab, both teaching and learning. And then finally, supporting teachers as high-impact influencers. And this is particularly important in recent years as the provisions for careers within schools is almost completely gone, particularly in England, where that funding that had been ring-fenced historically has completely disappeared. So often you get non-specialists talking about the career progressions for students. Now, whilst all of those are great, and they're very lofty aspirations, I suppose, if you want to talk to me later about how we specifically achieve some of those, speak to me at the bar, maybe bring me a gin. But what I'm hoping to get today across to you is the journey that we took to create a really effective online member community. So hopefully, I'm just going to a short video to show you where we are at.
As a member of ChemNet, you could benefit from being the first to know about events all over the UK, university and industry visits, as well as hands-on workshops. Meet the Universities is a unique opportunity for you to speak to representatives from institutions across the country, find out more about the chemical science courses on offer, and get a taste of undergraduate life. You can also take advantage of our careers support online. Expert careers advisors are on hand to help you make informed choices and feel confident about your future in chemistry. Our brand new Doctor Careers provides a forum for discussion where you can ask one of our experts for advice on anything from what activities to get involved in over the summer break to filling in your UCAS form. Study help is never far away when Dr. ChemNet is online to answer a tricky homework question, or just offer more information on the subject that you'd like to find out more about. ChemNet members receive a monthly newsletter and access to The Mole, our magazine for students. Discover real-world chemistry, games, profiles, and lots more. Keep up to date with our events calendar and stay connected with the latest blog posts. ChemNet, the Royal Society of Chemistry's website for all chemistry students.
Cool, so I hope most of you agree that if that had been around when you were studying at GCSE or A-levels, that had been a really helpful thing. I know I wish I'd had it when I was studying. But these days, that's not a big enough hook, just that support being available. We're working with an audience that are digital natives, and I'm sure that's a word, a phrase that you'll hear over and over again today. This age group, they really are. They've grown up in expecting information just at a touch of a button. They've never had to wait for it. And not only that, they've done this in environments that are really clean, they're pleasing interfaces. And what also collectively identifies this age group is they really know their mind as well. They know what they like, they know what they don't like, and they're happy to tell us about it. So with those sort of provisos in mind, it seemed unlikely that the Royal Society of Chemistry, what I guess is quite often thought of as a little bit of a fuddy-duddy organization, was never going to make science cool. And if you look at where we began, you would probably think we'd never get there. We began on our online forum, MyRSC. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily out of touch, but what it is, sorry, my table is laughing and my manager who set it up is sitting on the table there. But what it is it was a community not made for this audience. It was a community made for our larger core membership. So these are academics, industrialists, teachers, undergraduate students, postgraduate students, and we had created a really small part of this community for our ChemNet members. Now, as you saw in the video, Dr. ChemNet, which is a sort of Ask the Expert service, that had always been very popular, but that was really all the engagement we were able to receive on this website. So we realized some changes were needed, and top of that list was making sure that this community had their own space. And I think that was when ChemNet really began to gain its own identity. So what I'm going to take you through now is the process that we set up, the iterative process that really helped us build and then retain our relevancy to this audience. There we are. So what we went through was a value proposition series of sessions, I guess. And what this allowed us to do was approach this problem without the restraints that we had of MyRSC and other systems. We came at it thinking from the point of view of the customer and really focusing on the customer jobs, the things that they want to accomplish, the complaints that they may have, the things that make life difficult for them, and also the things that would really make a big benefit for them. So I'm just going to start by the sort of jobs that we looked at and how we approached this process. We asked ourselves a few questions. So, top of that list is what is the most important thing that this audience wants to accomplish? And then thinking about that, are there any key stepping stones to helping them achieve it? Then we wanted to think about, are they in different contexts? Obviously, someone studying at 14 is completely different to someone studying 18. Their educational level is different. Also, geographically, there could be huge differences. We also wanted to think about what emotions impact their decisions and how they would want to be perceived by their peers and if there's anything they can do to change that. And this process helped us out this little bit of what I guess is a bit of a knowledge pathway, and that was that their primary goal is to gain knowledge, but it's not because they want to gain knowledge, they want to do it to pass their exams. And previously, I guess that's where we kind of left ChemNet. But what we realized was it wasn't just to pass exams. They want this because they want a career, they want a future. And actually, they don't really know the options that are available to them. So we gave them this we were planning to give them this environment where they could find this out. But actually, options are great, but tools to get on that pathway are even better. And what's better than that, again, is the skills, as well as those skills and tools, are the evidence and the recognition that they have these tools. But they're also doing trying to achieve all these things whilst they've got a part-time job, they've got their revision, they've got a girlfriend or a social life. I just about remember what that was like. And time is precious to them. So that took us quite comfortably onto our next thought. There we are. Our next process was customer pains. So again, the things that make life difficult for them, really bothersome. And the sort of things we were thinking about was, what did they define as too costly? Is that time? Is that money? Is that the amount of effort required? And what does bad look like for them? Are there any difficulties that they come into in their everyday life? Is that online? Is that in their school or their personal life? And are there any emotional, social consequences that they encounter and fear? And I guess what we realized was the dichotomy that I guess there's lots of people in this room who probably still suffer, I know I do, that you don't want to fail your exam because you don't know about a topic, but nobody wants to put their hand up in class and ask the stupid question. So what we thought, a way around this would be to introduce this environment where they're with like-minded individuals, but they still have an element of anonymity. And of course, they still have these digital expectations that I mentioned earlier on about that instant nature, that those clean interfaces. And then finally, to wrap this value proposition process up, we looked at the customer gains. So this was around what quality levels do they expect? Are there any features that they enjoy with our site, with other sites? How do they measure their own success? How do they measure their own failures? And what is the most important thing for them to benefit, or what is the most important thing that would make them enjoy an environment? So is that a guarantee of quality? Is that specific features? Is that just more features? And this re-emphasized that point of an element of privacy, but also about the benefit to effort ratio. So when we drew these together, we came up with what I guess was a sentence to try and define this whole process. And what we came up with was the information that ChemNet has to provide needs to be accessible, consumable, and interactive. It needs to be at a level that is understandable. It needs to be easily discoverable, and at a quality that can be trusted. So just to break those down a little bit further, I mean, accessible, it goes without saying in this day and age, people want it on their phones, on their mobiles, on their tablets. Consumable, it needs to be delivered in sizable chunks. No one wants to come onto a web page these days and see just a whole page of scrolling text. It needs to be in bite-sized, consumable chunks. It needs to be interactive. Our members, again, they want to get involved in this community. Understandable goes back to that point I was saying about someone at 14 having a very different knowledge level to someone at 18. Discoverable, all-around search. We don't want someone to have to type in something about an atom in our instance and get every post that may mention an atom in some way, shape, or form. We want it to be specific and precise so that they get the right topic. And then trusted quality, I think, goes without saying. We want to make sure that we are providing the best content that they can get. So that was our very noble sentence, but we needed to validate those. They were what we thought this audience wants. What we had to do next was go out and find what the audience actually wanted and see if it matched up. Now, at this stage, we already had a little bit of an audience at this age group, and we used them. It makes sense. I know I've been in a lot of these organizations, and people say, we went out and we spoke to our members, and I always nod sagely and think, yes, we also do that. But actually, I think in this process, we really did maximize on those opportunities. We held a raft of focus groups, surveys, we did user testing, we did super groups. We're very lucky that we have a huge horde of teachers who are also very passionate chemistry teachers, so we were able to reach those the potential members, the non-members, as well as those that were already parts of the website. And at the end of this process, we had a brilliant idea of, sorry, I should have moved on here, of what is and isn't what they wanted this community to be. And in a nutshell, it really helped us to reinvent what our organization could be to this audience. And largely speaking, that those points that I just got across, the accessible, consumable, interactive, discoverable, understandable, they were very close to what this audience wanted. But there was a lot of them, so we needed to prioritize these. We had a limited amount of resource, and we needed to make sure that we were delivering the right things and the most effective things to get the most impact. So we set up our golden triangle for digital native. Now, the three areas that we felt were most important for us to direct our efforts, and they were mobile optimization, content planning, and user experience. Now, what we believed was small improvements in any of these areas would have a big impact. And I know Dave Brailsford of GB Cycling, if anyone has heard his phrase, the aggregation of marginal gains, that was really the sort of principle that we put in place here. Any small changes over the course of the last 18 months would aggregate to have quite a big effect, and we needed to prioritize these areas. So what I'm going to go on to do now is just show the changes that we made in these areas, and I'm going to use some of the quotes that we collected through our focus groups to show you why we did those things. So firstly was our user experience. Now this, I'm talking to a room of people who know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the buzzword at the moment, I suppose. This was the navigation, the interaction, how they become a part of this community. And I think Alex on the bottom there really sums it up. The interface we had, it wasn't appealing. It wasn't logical for one of our ChemNet members to come into that site and to be a part of it. So we really needed to start from the point of we needed a new design, we needed a new architecture, and that was quite a daunting place to begin. So what we did was we went back to the books, we went back to the white papers, the research, and there's loads of it out there on this age group. Everyone's excited to talk about millenniums, Generation K, digital natives, and there's a raft of it. And I agree it's not necessarily all in agreement, but we had this audience that we were able to validate those thoughts as well. And we did throughout this process. We kept making small changes to get to a launch, and then even after our launch, in a series of beta phases that allowed us to improve over a monthly basis. And what we came up with was something that is broadly effortless. I would say it's mostly effective, but we're not 100% there yet. But I'm really pleased with where we've got to from where we began. The next biggest change in my mind was our content planning. So to put it into context, when we had the MyRSC, the blue site that I showed you at the beginning, the content that we uploaded was if the RSC had a new product that we wanted to bang our drum about. And that was about the only content that we ever introduced to the website. It was poor, really. We then moved on to having this new website, and we thought, well, what we'll do is we'll try and follow all the trends that happen in social media. And that was great in the sense because it was reactive, but it was sporadic, and it didn't really mean it was good quality content either. So we set up a two-pronged approach. And the first part of that was having a 12-6-1 month plan. So at the 12-month stage, we had a rolling timeline. We just came up with the themes of what we wanted to focus on. So these could map the academic calendar. So for example, the UCAS timetable is always a popular one with our audience. We may bring up things that are in the RSC calendar. So next year we're celebrating our 175th anniversary, and our ChemNet audience will hopefully be a big part of that. We may be recognizing things in the scientific calendar. So for example, we've recently had the Nobel Prizes, and we've brought that into the community. Or we could be doing something every day, like the Rugby World Cup we've promoted on the website, and even the release of the latest Marvel film. And actually having this broad range of resources and content makes such a big difference to the community, because they see us as almost as a signpost, but then end up coming back to our high quality content. So that brings me on to the 6-month stage. And at that point, we should have a really good idea of the content that we are planning on using. So for example, next week we've got a webinar on work experience. We may have a series of YouTube videos that we haven't created, but they promote the science that are in certain TV shows. Or maybe we could have made a new resource, such as our recent periodic table. So if we have all that content, we know what we're going to do with it by the 6-month stage. The 1-month stage, we have all the supporting text, all the materials that we need, ready to launch then on the day it needs to go live. And what that allows us to do is to then continue that original idea of having those social media, picking up on those trends, but it takes us on to the second prong of the approach, and that's seeding the discussions. So this next stage, next sentence is probably going to be a little bit of a shock for a lot of people in the room. I know I went to a meeting a few months back with Deason, and it came as a real surprise when I said that forums are not dead if you use them in the right way. I think a lot of us think of forums as something from the very beginning of internet, but actually they still have a place. What we do is we'll take something. So, for example, recently there was a big Twitter campaign led by a lot of scientists called #QTOF. And the idea behind it was scientists were quite unscientifically trying to find out what the general public thought was the cutest animal. Now, this fitted perfectly into what we were trying to achieve on ChemNet beyond the curriculum. So we brought that into our website, and if any of you are interested, axolotl is probably the cutest animal I've ever seen, but you can find that in your own time. But the idea of this was that it gave the community then a place to discuss, to think about the things that are important to them. But we very quickly realized that we would only end up with a handful of people, which I think is a problem with almost every forum in the world. So we had to try and encourage those other people. And we set up a point system, which you can see Nicole talks about there. The general idea is if someone contributes to the forum or to our polls or anything like that, they get points. Points mean badges. Now, obviously, most of our audience are thinking about studying science, so these are really important pieces of recognition when they want to go on to study chemistry, but arguably medicine or maths or science, maths or biology or physics. So it was a really effective way of trying to get that engagement from this audience. And then the third prong of that triangle was our mobile optimized experience. Now, again, I'm talking to a lot of people in the room who already know all this. Mobile optimization is king, and we really need to be thinking about it as a sector. And we're not all there yet. We're not. What we have at the moment is a mobile responsive platform. It allows our members to look at their mobile phones, but it doesn't really react to what the kind of the things we want them to be doing. If they're on their mobile phones, they're much more likely to be looking at the forums than trying to use it as a robust resource place for homework. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of space yet for us to go on that front, but we will get there. So I just want to go on and think about the impact that these things have had. So I've had to whistle through those, but if anyone wants any more detail, I can speak to you afterwards. But I can assure you that the small changes we have made have had huge impact. Since January this year, our numbers have doubled, moving from 16,000 members to 32,000 members. Now, a lot of that has come from our teacher engagement, but an awful lot of it has come from word of mouth amongst our members. So it really does show that maybe we did start to make science cool. But that's not the whole story for me. What I find more important is the engagement within that community. So I've just got this graph to show you. The difference that this new website has made. So before September 2014, that was when we were on MyRSC, and all that was really being used was the Dr. ChemNet forums. We had 0.5% engagement, which actually, if you think of the 1% rule, we're halfway there. But when we launched in September, we had this new content plan, we had this new user experience, and mostly mobile design. We started to rock it, and each peak is us trying something different, and we're constantly trying to reinvent things. I'd ignore this last spike in September. That's just because everyone's gone back to school and they're really excited. But we've moved from 0.5% to 33% engagement this year. But we're not at the end of our journey, as I've said. We still have a fair way that we want to go. So what I'm just going to do now is go through some of the last things that we hopefully will be doing in the coming weeks and months. Just trying to continue to improve that optimized experience and the user journey. So just got a few screenshots here. So firstly, we've got this design. Ty had mentioned earlier on in one of the comments that he thought Twitter was the way to go. I'm not entirely sure he's all right. That's not exactly what we want to be. But this really does offer people a way to dip in and out, remember where they were, but it still maintains the resources and the robust nature that it always has been. As well as that, we've also introduced a bookmarking tool so that if a user does find something that they find particularly useful, they're able to pin it in their own personal space. When it comes back to revision time, it could be a really powerful tool for them to revise with. Now, one of my personal bugbears with even the current site is it's very text heavy. So what we are doing with this next stage of development is embedding videos and pictures within it to make it just much more reactive for the audience. And then finally, banging the same drum, optimization. This won't just recognize that you're on a phone and hopefully get it to fit the page, it will recognize that. If someone is there on their mobile phone, on the bus, as Charlotte mentioned earlier on, she's more likely just to want to be finding out what's happening in the discussions. If someone's there on their computer, they're probably doing homework. But hopefully we'll start to begin to recognize those patterns and make sure that the right content and the right parts of the website are available. So that should be launched next year. Maybe this time next year, you can ask me back and I'll tell you how that went. But that's me done. If you have any questions, I'm around all day. And if any of you have any children who are studying chemistry, please get them to sign up to ChemNet. Hopefully we can really help them along. So thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful. And I'll finish there.